Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another podcast episode on this podcast slash YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me today for another episode. But I'm not gonna lie, y'all, this one is definitely more of a digital diary for me, talking about feelings as I'm processing rather than having it up in my notes because the mercury and micro braids and the Gatorades and the microwaves be having me a little bit reflective. You know, we just had an eclipse and stuff like that. Springtime, all that stuff just has me really reflective right now. And it's been showing on my mind while I'm journaling. And yeah, for those of you guys who aren't new here, I don't be knowing sometimes how common my dating styles or dating life or like how I move through things is because I feel like on the media and like I want to say my friends in real life, but my friends in real life are all so different. I got relationship friends. I got friends that always got a new yeah. I got one friend that's like less experienced than me. I don't know, but I feel like the media, like the Gen Z, the young culture is very much like dating app, dating app, dating app, new man, meet a new guy when I go out, new fling, da da da, or I'm not going out, but we're texting and we're planning something. Like, I feel like my generation is very access coded, you know, because like I said, we got dating apps now. We got social media is basically a dating app. Not saying like for everybody, but you know, like when you're on the internet, especially when you post stuff like me, you get out to people. I've had relationships start from social media. It's a very different time, you know, with all the technology and all that of sorts. And I think I'm a little bit different than the average Gen Zer. Not trying to be like, oh my God, guys, I'm so different. No. I just genuinely how I move, how intentional I think about things, and just like my pace because of the relationships I've had and the things I've gone through is the way I am. So I've been single for a year, which to some people, like for someone in their 20s, that's long. For some people, it's not. But this isn't the longest I've ever been single. I was single from 20. I had a breakup when I was 20, and I didn't date it, like have a relationship again till I was 22. So I was single for almost 2 years. That one definitely felt long. No shade. I'm not trying to go that long again. Like, I like connection. But, you know, to some people, it's like, I feel like, especially for someone in their 20s, I feel like that sounds really long to a lot of people. And like, oh, you didn't even have like an almost talking stage or like some, you know, flings in between. Like, really not. Like, if you guys watch my YouTube, a lot of times I be telling stories of like my discernment and men who had me picked up before we could even meet. Or it's one date. Like the thing is, I've thought about this in my dating life. I'm like, almost every first date I've ever been on that ended up being my man. Did they stay my man? But like no shade, there's rarely been any first dates I've been on. Normally I ask a lot of questions. I want to know a lot of stuff, discernment and research people. Look through that page, right? Before, not even just because I don't want my time wasted, but also just as a woman, it is very important. I feel like to know certain things before dates. I know a lot of people have different dating styles. Like, oh well, I don't want to ask all those questions because I just want to know on the date. I want to know some stuff, babe. I already told the story. Yo, I already have the story time that he told on himself when I had my first phone call with this man, black man, and found out he voted for Trump. So I'm a firm believer that there's some stuff I want to know. But you know, different styles for different people. I don't know how that sounds to some people, especially like for me being in early 20s. Sometimes like people go crazy early 20s. That's not that crazy in later 20s when they calm down. Or sometimes, I don't know, no, no, no. I feel like for the people I'm around and kind of what you see on social media, it feels like a long time or like hard to believe when I say it to people. So in this year, I I had my breakup last February. In September, I went on one date and it was short lived. And then that's been it. Your girl hasn't got much play. And I feel a lot different in this season than I did in like the almost 2 years, which I've talked about in a lot of podcast episodes how that was very different. Like the 2 years I was single was probably a lot of isolation and really hard for me to date because I had to pour a lot of recovery back into myself, recovering from abuse and stuff like that. But this time is a lot different. Like something ended on my terms, very confident in my decision, very like, I feel like smart decisions. I think I mentioned this on my channel before, how a lot of people describe love in general, but especially self-love a lot of different ways. And like what I've learned in my years, especially dating, but any kind of relationships you have, I think like the definition of self-love is the choices that you make. It's not always like skincare and upping it, like literally what you choose to put up with when you have a choice, you know, is like, is this what I deserve? Is this where I want to go? Like making those hard decisions from what you want versus what you need and you know you deserve, I feel like is a true self-love. Boundaries, like protecting yourself and not settling. So that's the energy I've been coming in this past year rather than the time before. Very low self-esteem, very fear-based and anxious-based rather than walking in confidence in my decisions and stuff. And I don't know, I'm just in a time where I'm feeling very reflective of myself and I want to validate anybody else who maybe is also feeling reflective and has whatever feelings about being single or being more of a slow paced, closed off, but then also feeling like, well, I am open, but the options aren't, you know, is that like, it's especially like I said before, I hate when people tell, especially people who have never had a relationship or have never done certain things who really crave that it's like, oh, you're not missing out. Self-love. You're this age. You don't need to be all that. No, it's okay to feel lonely and have wants and desires and be like tired of the same thing. Like tired of, just like you would not tell someone who is like, I'm tired of having this job that I really want to have a new job. You wouldn't be like, you're not missing out. Just stay at the job. Just be glad you have consistency. Well, maybe some people would, but most people would encourage you. Yeah, if you want change in that part of your life, you should definitely apply more. Or it's totally okay to feel frustrated with like the same consistency. So why is it different when it comes to wanting love, wanting intimacy, different things? And I don't know, like, I don't know if it's like based on the content, because I talk about, like I said, stuff I'm processing in real time, but also like stuff I'm here to like preach to the choir, like, you know, stuff that I've already processed. But honestly, in the past year, like I said, it was so different. I had not felt super lonely or down or bothered by being single like I had in the longer stretch or in times before. But hitting a year now, being a little reflective, not reminiscent, but reflective of my relationships and different situations and how things make me feel, I am starting to feel a little bit tired of, what's the word? Why do I want to say static? Of, I don't know, we'll say like a slow or, like I said, the same thing in that area. Like I've had a year, and I know this is my year of the horse in the Chinese New Year, 2002 born. But my focus since being single, I've really been focusing on work and my creativity. Not that I'm ever not focused on those things. I got a very important job and things that I want to go, which is why I'm talking to this camera right now. But that's like really what I've been thinking about. Like, oh, how can I up this? How can I do this? How can I talk about this? Ideas, applying different stuff like that. That's really where my head is at. And like I said, I'm never that girl. It's like, oh, I don't even want anything right now. No. If I find one slides in my DMs, I think I was on the app maybe like a month last year. That's one thing I'm kind of over, dating apps. I've always been open, but I'm just saying like where my focus is. Just like some people when they have the consistency in other parts of their lives and they're like, well, I really want love. So now I'm going to focus on actually getting to know people or putting myself out there when I go there, blah, blah. It's just like effort. And I haven't really had that outwards effort, I guess, lately. And yes, it can feel a little sad and lonely. Like I said, especially with how my generation is portrayed on the internet. is like, don't cry over man, get a new one. I gotta just finish this. And like, that's the thing I mentioned before. I'm the type of person where I get DMs every day. But again, it's like, it's not even, people think it's so easy with, okay, like being attractive or just being a woman, getting attention and stuff like that. But again, it's the material. I get DMs every day from people in fucking different states. Like, babe, I'm in California. Are you in Southern California? Call me. Like, you know, and then if you're in Southern California, do I even like what I'm seeing? You know? And then it just goes a step further. How do you approach me? Some guys approach me super disgusting and sexually, or just like, you know, it's not just like attention. You know, I feel like a lot of people, especially the girlies, will understand that. But all in all, it's alone. Like, and I don't want to say like, again, like I'm above or things are different. Sometimes they are, but you know, a lot of times in our generation where it's like, get a new one. I just started talking to this thing, blah, blah, blah. I sometimes wonder if like for those people who are always on to the next or swipe to the next person and stuff, if it's like quality. This is the thing I struggle with as a girl who's so intentional. Cause I'm like, yeah, maybe that's true. Like this man online, I could get with blah, blah, blah. But is it quality? Like, you know, how I say I ask a lot of questions. How does that social media look? How do they talk to people? What do they post about? What's their following? Like, maybe it's like they're just there, but they're not thinking about all those intentional things. But being an intentional girl is so hard because I can't ignore it. Like I said, even though, again, I'm not here to shame other people, especially other women who do participate in hookup culture, in, you know, all those things. But like, that's not me. Like, if I respond to a DM or something, I'm genuinely interested and I want you to have intention back, not just like, oh, I don't really, you know, like, what do you want out of me? Like, you know, I don't know if that makes sense. Not that like, okay, you gotta have a plan but low key, because do I give up material? Not, like I said, no shade to some people, because some people hook up material, that's what y'all are looking for. But it's just like, I'm always with intention how they're like date to marry. I guess sometimes I feel like that's kind of corny, but it's true. Like, I'm not interested in talking to someone or dating someone for fun, like immediately. Like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a relationship? If it's no or I don't know, then there's no point. Like, there's no point. I don't really need to just talk to you. Just talk to you. I got friends. You know what I'm saying? And you know, again, different strokes for different folks. But I don't know if it's the relationships I've been through, stuff I've been through, how I was raised, but just like with how I am as a person, being so intentional, I think also just little things, because I feel like intention and passion just runs through my blood. Little disappointing situations when it's like, okay, like I said, the DMs are there, I barely respond. I barely have conversations unless I really want it of substance, or, you know, even like when I'm in a space where I'm like, oh, I'm excited, like me and this person are actually like, you know, okay, talking exclusively, planning things, to when like even some of these story times, because y'all know some of these it was like 3 days in, but still trifling enough to tell a story. But sometimes those situations, it's just like, especially in this past year, it can be hurtful at any point in your life. But as someone who's been like so career focused the last year, it's like when I do get that feeling of excitement, like, oh, maybe something, maybe date, maybe future, like when I get excited and disappointed, like I said in the 0.5, when I do respond and open up a little bit and get excited, because I'm not used to this consistent, oh, he got me up, like to the next, it's gets a little, like, it gets a little exhausting. You know, like I said, some stories I tell are stupid, pure, just funny. I can look back and laugh at it, like that man who said he liked the orange man and I blocked him and hung up on his face. That's funny to look back at. That, like, stuff like that really is funny. But I don't know if I've ever made a video about this or if it's something I talk to with past lovers and stuff like that. But especially people close to me. Like, I don't know what's in me, like the passion of just me already being someone who I feel like is such an over explainer and so thorough. Like, the number one thing for me, I feel like in any type of relationship, even if I'm having a conversation with a friend, family, but especially romantic or boys wise, because those make us a little sensitive sometimes, is I hate the feeling of not feeling misunderstood. Like I said, especially as a person, I know we all have different communication styles. Not everyone is like me or interprets things the same ways as me. But not feeling understood, like I say something and it's like, what I just explained, I just gave you the 5-page SAO. Like, what? Especially when it comes to like conflict or arguments and you're still just like, oh, you're mad, or it's really this after I just said it. Or if it's a sensitive topic, it just makes me feel insane. And again, it's not even the point to where like everyone has to be perfect and operate exactly how I operate. It's in the stance of like not feeling understood, and then also someone not trying to understand me. Someone just being like, oh, so it's this. Oh, so you're really mad for this. Like, didn't I just say in my 5-page essay, it was this that triggered me, and then this is why, and then this is how I feel. Like, everyone has the feeling of feeling misunderstood. But like I said, it's especially an uncomfortable feeling for me, especially when it's in a close relationship, because like the people close to me, family, friends, whatever, know how I am. So for y'all to, but even with new people, like I've had a situation recently where I was like, again, this person and everything, not that deep, but the feeling of feeling misunderstood, it just feels like suffocating. And okay, for anybody who feels misunderstood in a conversation, there's two ways you could go. You could explain the 5-page essay you just said, or maybe you did. You could explain what you mean and try to continue the conversation, depending on the context, or you could just shut down. And I think a lot of times, because I already think I'm a very thorough person, like, and I feel like oftentimes I do explain myself multiple times. I feel like sometimes I kind of tend to just shut down. Because also, like I said, something that's very triggering for me, especially in romantic relationships, which I think a lot of other people can probably relate to, because people don't know how to deal with people. We're not taught people skills these days. Like, America loves to just like push that American dream, conflict, talk it out, but like, what does that really look like? I've gotten so triggered in romantic relationships, especially when people think that like when I'm just talking, they're like, oh, I'm not trying to argue with you, or we argue all the time. And I'm over here so lost. I know somebody else could feel me on this one, because I thought we were just having a conversation. There's been so many times, I'm not trying to argue with you right now. All you want to do is argue. I'm not yelling. I'm not being snappy, or maybe sometimes I could be perceived as snappy because we sometimes things don't come off the right way. But I be so confused. Like, especially me, baby, I'm gonna ask a question. I'm gonna yap your ear off. If you couldn't already tell by my YouTube channel, I'm gonna yap that ear off, and I'm gonna ask questions, and I'm gonna ask follow-up questions, because this is a conversation. Like, is it not a conversation? It's not a conversation. You say something, I say something. What else are you supposed to say if there's nothing to respond to? I'm asking, how do you feel about this? You answer. Okay, why do you feel like that about this? Like, I need to date a man who likes to listen. Don't we all? No, but for real, like, I've had so many people get like annoyed with me because they're like, all you do is like ask questions, and but it's almost like that's what a conversation is. And you can ask questions too, but you just don't want to. Maybe I'm gonna ask that question. Where, why, when, how? Not because I'm trying to be annoying, because this is literally the conversation. Like the questions and hearing, oh, how do you feel about this? Why do you feel that way? Is the root of understanding, but it makes like a lot of people quite uncomfortable. And like I said, definitely been triggered in romantic situations, but even just like in my upbringing and other things like that. And I feel like I've low key seen this somewhere, like in a podcast or whatever. But I think, okay, everyone has a right to feel annoyed sometimes. Maybe if it's a conversation they don't like, it's uncomfortable. That's the word, uncomfortable, though. I've seen this, like someone said this, especially in the Black community too. Like sometimes questions can feel so triggering because I think it's very common in our culture as to like asking questions is like, oh, so you're questioning me. You know what? Like when it comes to parenting styles, it's like it comes off as like, why are you like questioning is disobedience. And it's like a lot of people are taught to just listen and obey. That's why we have systems like religion and stuff like that. But I definitely got that vibe as a kid sometimes, but it didn't stop me because I'm still a question asker. And I hope to provide like, like I said, I have a background in working with kids, and I've even had to like log into myself too for my upbringing of like, why are they asking me this? Why are they asking so much stuff? But like at the same time, especially when they're kids, because they genuinely want to know. And I should encourage, them speaking up and advocating themselves when they're confused and when they don't. Like it's a very healthy thing that a lot of us are taught to like zip it. And so, yeah, I think like being expressive and searching for using your voice makes a lot of people uncomfortable for people who are taught like to not, that like that's the way of safety or that's how it's supposed to be. And although I'm talking about it, and having this revelation and saying that's how I am and that's still how I'm going to be, but also I'm not above my own self-criticism and stuff. Sometimes people, like I said, could feel triggered because it's uncomfortable to them, but also maybe sometimes it's how I ask the question. If I had attitude and if I sound condescending, I don't always deliver with the best pace, but I still am proud that I'm someone who like advocates for myself and is very open. But yeah, being met with, a negative response or not the response you wanted when you're advocating for yourself or using your voice, or just feeling misunderstood when you feel like you're doing the self-help books and stuff, you're doing the textbook thing of like, I'm asking questions, I'm not assuming, blah, blah, and then feeling misunderstood. Like I said, it feels like exhausting and it can feel really sad because like I said, in a situation that recently made me feel that way, again, how you have the option to either repeat yourself or try or just shut down. Sometimes I just shut down. Sometimes it's situational, and that's how I felt recently. Because it's like, at what point, not me quoting myself on something that I think is very normal, but a lot of people, I feel like, have that. I don't think my shutdown is my default. I think a lot of times I try. It's situational, but a lot of times I feel like people just shut it down because that's easier. But I don't know. It's just like I always try to advocate for myself, but it's like I feel like I don't feel better either way. Like if I try to over explain to someone, it's about the whole conversation piece too, about if someone is trying to understand me. And if they're not trying, it feels suffocating and I'm trying to explain. And then also when I shut down, it also feels kind of suffocating because I'm like, I have more to say. I have more to say. Like, I have more to say, and then I don't understand why I'm not being understood when I just wrote a whole 5-page essay, but I'm not trying to write a 10-page essay because you don't get it. Because what's the point? Guys, is it the micro braids? So yeah, that in between feeling is it really is. It really is. And like I said, I feel like there's no advice to give because both of those responses are valid depending on the situation. And like I said, how either of those in my life and in different situations have made me feel. Like I think I don't think I have regrets on whether this was on a big scale or on a little scale about like if I should have said more or if I should have said less. Because I think everything fit for the situation. Even when you find yourself in times where you're like, I know a lot of people look back and they're like, damn, I wish I should have said more. Sometimes it's like, yeah, like some of these story times, I'm like, oh, I should have went harder. I should have out more. And then sometimes it could be like maybe a recent situation where you still have sympathy for someone and you're like, I feel like I should have said more like about how I care or whatever. That is like totally a thing, but I feel like every time I felt that way, maybe not the first time, because some people still need to get cussed out. Loki. But I feel like every time I feel that way, it never stays. Like I know some people be feeling that way for years, but I'm a, huge believer in what's meant to happen will be, blah, blah, blah. And it's okay. Like also sometimes when I think about saying more, some people don't even deserve to hear more. Some people need to sit with what it is or the lack thereof and figure it out for themselves. But yeah, I don't know, guys. Low-key working through this on camera. Feeling misunderstood, feeling lonely. All these things are some things that are not exclusive to me and not to you. Everybody has felt that, whether it's on a high or low level, whether it's from this or that. And yeah, I guess the retrograde just has me reflecting on how I don't like to feel, and especially relationship wise, ways I've felt. And yeah, I almost felt myself self deprecating for a second, thinking about like, again, reflecting on the past, not reminiscing, just on how things have made me feel. Like, you know how like I can feel lonely and I can feel like, dang, like sometimes I wish I had someone or had some real activity in my dating life. And then sometimes I look back on like how, again, suffocated I felt with people, like either being punished for advocating for myself and asking questions and feeling misunderstood, or being in situations where, again, I've been in an abusive relationship where the safety was to suffocate myself and not say anything. Or even if it wasn't, like just not saying anything to try to keep the peace or whatever. Like just feeling so suffocated and misunderstood. Obviously, I know with my subscriber count going up, there's gas men who always got something to say. This clarity isn't really for them, but obviously not every single relationship felt like that all the time, but a lot of them, which again is why I'm like, I am feeling lonely sometimes and stuff, but sometimes it's not much to miss because I did feel like that a lot. Why feel like that when, But I don't know. I think this is an important conversation and feeling to talk about because one of my favorite comments, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, people being like, I love that, like, you said, like, what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling, or you said something like, I'm low-key afraid to say outside, or a conversation I don't hear a lot. Because I think that's really important, especially when I was in the pits, in the thick of it. That was one of the most comforting things for me to see is like, wow, someone put words to how I'm feeling or someone else feels that way. It's really helpful. And I recently, literally on the eclipse night, I literally saw this video on one of my mutuals where she wrote like a poem or a love letter about the relationship she's in. And she started off with, like, people say that you attract the love that you think you deserve. And she said, I don't think that's true, because she talked about how she felt about herself at the beginning of the relationship, how much more built up and worthy and stuff she feels now. It was just like a really beautiful thing, had me tearing up on the full moon night. And I also reflect on how I remember that's how I used to feel too, especially in that long stretch, because you get into the media, you get into sayings and stuff like that to an extent, not attracting the love you think you deserve, but again, with the self-love and the self-respect, like the boundaries and like, oh, he does this and this, but I'll just accept it because I want to that extent. Like I said, yes, like even though it's hard, sometimes we do have to make decisions and cut things to respect ourselves. But again, this whole, like, again, low key Gen Z thing, how some people on hookup culture or dating apps, like I said, and they're like, well, you're not finding love because you didn't work on yourself or do this, and that, and this, and that isn't healed, and you're still crying over that, blah, blah. And like, law of attraction, like again, you attract how you feel about yourself and stuff. I remember like a point where I used to think like that whole like, oh, manifesting and like what you do manifest and stuff. But again, I think I believe more in, again, how things will work out how they're supposed to. Like, I don't think, and why I try not to get upset about things that don't work out and stuff. Because again, I truly don't think anything that's meant for me is going to miss me. I don't have to grasp onto it. I don't have to hold my breath. Like, I'm a little bit of an astrology girly. As I've talked about, I've had stuff go down, breakups on full moons, eclipses, stuff like that. I made a video about that. How I'm like, yeah, I think that has some truth into it, but I don't believe in like worshiping or putting all your like 100% truth into anything. I've definitely had nights like that. And I remember sometimes I've even thought about like the astrology lining up, But again, no matter whatever your belief system is, if you're into astrology, if you're into religion, whatever, praying or manifesting or whatever, like nothing is going to miss you that is yours. Like if it happened to happen during this night and you want to blame it on that, like that's fine. But I think like it's even higher that, again, it wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't, this is how it was supposed to play out. Sometimes I do tend to like self-deprecate a little bit and start to subscribe to the opening of that poem again about the like, you attract the love that you think you deserve, from when I was super down to being like, yeah, I don't even need anything right now because there's so many things wrong with me, to how more confident I feel now, but to being like, well, I do all these things. I cut it off. I'm strict with my boundaries. I protect myself. Like, this is the most self-love I've ever had. And like, where's the rest of it? Like, I think both of those versions of myself show that it's not true. Like, I don't know. Like, again, I know I'm not a religious person. I know a lot of people like to fall into different belief systems to make sense of things. But I think, like I said, the most sensible thing that might still not make sense is just like, it's going to happen when it's supposed to happen. Like I said, from that beautiful poem from my mutual, finding love in a hopeless place. That Rihanna. Or someone finding love at the height of their everything. There's so many different love stories that we can't bank it on that. And it's like isolating to even tell yourself that. I just reposted something about that too. So I hope nobody else falls into that trap, as we are reflective, as we might be frustrated with parts of ourselves and parts with our lives. I think it's just important for us to remember that you're worthy of love and all the good things, no matter where you're at. But also, like I said, truth and a little bit truth. Also, be smart. Protect yourself. Try, put effort in where you want to see. Like I said, I don't subscribe to a belief system. I think things are just going to happen and you got to go out and get it yourself. But like I said, but then there's the other side. Like, yes, put effort into things you want, but also some things are just going to come. Like, I just think it's life. It's just what happens in the real world. But thank you guys so much for listening to another podcast episode. I hope something I said resonated with you, made you feel seen or heard. Because like I said, that's the most important feeling to me. And a big reason why I love when I get feedback like that, because it's super important. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Hang in there, everybody. Like I said, as things have been a little bit crazy, ground yourself. And as always, I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.